What up guys, it's Dylan with Magickal Chams. I'm going to show you how to convert any screen panel for an enclosure into a plexiglass panel. So in the video, I'm going to be replacing two screen doors with plexiglass. Now, there's a couple reasons that plexiglass is extraordinarily useful for this application. One is that it doesn't weigh a lot. So instead of putting something glass in there that's going to weigh your cage down and be hard to lift down if you ever choose to, plexiglass hardly weighs a thing. Another thing is that glass breaks. So if you were to drop this piece, it's not going to break because plexiglass is made of plastic. Another reason you would want to replace the door with plexiglass in particular is because when looking and viewing your chameleon or your reptile, it's a lot easier on the eyes to view through something clear as opposed to looking through an aluminum screen. Another reason you would want to, convert the door or maybe all the sides is to retain some humidity. Now, all right, so you can go to a Lowe's. You can have them cut the plexiglass for you. I know Home Depot does not. If your local store, your local hardware store doesn't cut plexiglass, I'm also going to show you how to do that. It's fairly simple. It might take a couple tries, so maybe try on a smaller piece to get the hang of it. Sometimes, like in my case, I found that Lowe's had actually kept on to some scrap pieces. So the guy that worked there just gave them to me because they were going to throw them away anyway. So let's get to it. Alrighty, so here's a little how-to for cutting plexiglass, acrylic sheets. So what you want to do is you want to measure the size plexiglass you need. That's, go where you're going to install it, measure the dimensions for that, and then get a tape measure or a ruler depending on what size you need, and come to your plexiglass, and we're going to need to mark it up so we know where to cut. Make sure the protective packaging, the little plastic is on it, so when you mark this, it doesn't permanently damage the plexiglass. So for this demonstration, say I want a 9-inch cut. So I'm going to mark it at the bottom or the top, depending on how you look at it. Same thing up here. And then if you have a really big piece, I would suggest doing some along the middle. And then at this point, you can mark it, make a line across. But usually when you have a big piece, kind of a bit of an extra step to do that. So now, take your straight edge, line it up with your lines, and then get this guy, your little your plastic cutter, and you want to use this hook on the back, this hooked part of the blade. Hold down firm with your other hand. Now, easiest way to do this is to make sure your elbow's nice and not unbent, nice and straight. Put some weight into it. This plexiglass is pretty tough. You putting a little weight on it, it's not going to crack it. Start at the top and come down. You want to give it some pressure so you can start seeing these little threads coming up. So for the really big pieces, I find it really easy to start near the top or near the center. Keep pulling away. And then what I do is I turn it around. Or else what happens is I don't cut the top enough, and then the top becomes a part that, it's not a clean cut at the top. There's a little piece that stays on. So line this up with your cut now. And then take it from the center down. Or wherever, even the whole thing if you want, if you have it lined up correctly. Make sure you're getting this, putting pressure down and getting the end of this glass, this plexiglass. So, now you should have something that looks like this. Yeah, with this little score in it. Anyway, okay, so now you take this score mark, put it at the edge of a hard table, and you could slam it. That sometimes is easier. If you give it enough of a cut, enough of a score, you'll be able to just push it down and it will pull apart. Boom, just like that. So again, edge of the table, push down, and it will break at the score mark. So now you have two pieces. And so, little tip. This is thin enough to where I can do a score on one side, and it will break pretty easily. Another alternative is to also flip it over, do the same measurement, and score it on the exact opposite side. So when you go to break it, it breaks really cleanly. Alright, so once you have your screen out, once you pull out the spline and you pull out the screen, make sure you wash it. Make sure this is real clean and dry. If you got hard wire marks like I did, just use some white vinegar and some elbow grease and get it out. Place your acrylic within the frame and make sure the frame is fully together. Make sure your acrylic fits in here, which it does, which is great. And then you just want to pull up the sides on this, just a hair. So just pull up the corners. Don't take the whole thing off, because if you scratch it, you'll be really sorry. Just pull up the side just enough so you have a place for the silicone to attach to. Set this aside. Now, we're going to take some of this aquarium silicone. Okay, so you want to wear gloves for this part, because if you don't, you're going to accidentally get silicone on your hands, and then it's going to be a pain in the butt to get out. So, I cut the tip off this. Now what I want to do is I just want to fill in where the spline goes. Okay, now make sure your screen's together off the corners. And take your plexiglass and just slowly set it inside. Now, make sure your corners are still together. Apply some pressure. And get one of these guys. This is just a little silicone thing. And just scoop up all the extra. Cool. So get a new pair of gloves on so you don't mess up the other side of this. And then just slightly lift this up. And then take the corner of this tool and just run it along the underneath edge. Put some pressure back on here. Make sure your corners are together. And let it dry. Look at your directions for cure time. This one's 24 hours. So in 24 hours I'll come back, make sure it's set, pull off the plastic, and then put it on the cage. So here's a close-up. You can see all the silicone in that little gap for the where the spline, the little rubber or vinyl or whatever spline used to be. And you can see where I had a little overlap, and that's okay. So again, this is the inside of the door, so you're not going to see this. Alright, so for this one, I'll do the little tape out method I was talking about. So get yourself some blue painter's tape. Or similar, some sort of paper tape. And then just mark off where you want this seam to end. The bead of silicone on the front side of the cage. Alrighty, so see here we got a little border with a little bit of acrylic on the edge. Now, that side. And we're going to silicone it just like the last one. Alrighty, so now we got that. Let's put some fresh rubberoos on. Now we're going to take this side with the blue tape, flip it over, set it in like so. Some pressure on these points. Get your little caulking buddy on over these edges. So you want to take this corner, right? Let's see if I can get it. So take this corner and you want to get it at an angle on the inside corner, right underneath, which would be the front side. Okay, so now this is where it gets just a bit tricky. Now at this point, you gotta pull out the blue tape, because if the silicone dries that blue tape, cures that blue tape, good luck getting that blue tape up. It ain't coming up. So, just easily just lift it. Alright, so it's been nearly 24 hours since I applied the silicone and attached these acrylic pieces to the frame, and you can see that they're sticking, which is great. So next step, what I was saying yesterday was like, it doesn't really matter if you kind of get silicone on the metal on the outside, because you can just take your finger and rub it off. It's not gonna be perfect, but you can get a lot off. Like all these little shiny parts right here, boom, down here. Just rub this off. Yeah, so just take your time, just very lightly, just rub your finger on here, get it off. So this is the one that I did not use the tape on. I just used a little tool to get in this corner, and it's hard to even tell that there's really, I guess this is on the other side, this little part right here. But I mean, there's some places where it's kind of splotchy, but I could either rub it off if I want to, or, you know, like that. Or I can just leave it. It's not really going to be the focus. There's so much going on in the chameleon's cages with live plants and stuff that nobody's really going to even see this. It's not really that big of a deal. But if you did want to use the tape method, you can see here. Let's see if I can get a good angle. Yeah, you can see here where the silicone was stopped from the tape. And it looks a little cleaner if you happen to just be using a lot of silicone. Yeah, you see how this is just a pretty clean line.
At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter aesthetically what this looks like, because if you're like me, you're doing this to benefit the life of your reptile. In my case, it's to raise humidity.
Alrighty, here's the finished product. It's been about a week since I put these acrylic doors back on the enclosures, and they're holding up very nicely. You know, this is after, you know, it gets overspray as the cage does on the right. You know, the cage on the left has the heat source near the front, and at night it gets to be almost 100% humidity, and it gets this, the doors get this like layer of fog on them, this layer of mist on them, and nothing really seems to be warping these plexiglass doors, and that's a really good thing. So after these cured, I went ahead and screwed them back on to the enclosures, and then from there I was really careful with pulling off the protective film that's on them. Now just a little bit of advice when you do that, maybe consider, especially when you're pulling off the inside portion, supporting the plexiglass with your other hand, just to make sure it doesn't, you know, come out of place or anything like that. Not that it would, but you know, you can never be too careful. So once I got the protective film off, I went in on the inside and made sure that all the silicone on the inside that, you know, was extra, like you see right here. So I went ahead and got all the inside extra off, so that they don't go, so my critters wouldn't go accidentally eat a piece if trying to get like a cricket or something. The outside really doesn't bother me all too much. I hardly notice it. But if you wanted to, you could essentially get a little utility blade and just, you know, cut it out. You take your finger, you can rub it off. You know, I didn't want to mess with it too much, you know, and be a perfectionist and end up messing with the part of the silicone that's holding the pieces together. So, you know, it's totally up to you. Again, you can't, when you're looking at these enclosures, you're not looking at the rim of the doors, you know, the edges of the doors, the frame, whatever. So, yeah. Alrighty, so another really cool thing about doing this is that you'll have all this extra aluminum screen, which can be kind of pricey, and it's hard to find black aluminum screen, at least in my experience. You can take that extra screen and maybe use it on an enclosure that has a torn screen, or, you know, a screen that's messed up. For me, I'm going to take the extra screen from the doors and redo one of the tops of the cages. But anyway, if you have any questions about this, go ahead and reach me at Magickal Chams on Instagram, facebook.com/Magickal Chams, or go ahead and email me, magicalchams@gmail.com, and then go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Sweet, have a good day.